Welcome to the Eye Opener. I'm your host, Michael Lewis. Even though the impeachment is unconstitutional, the Democrats continue to push forward. What are they trying to achieve? Facebook has been recognized as the most used platform to plan for the January 6th riot. Will it also be removed from the App Store? Xi Jinping's ambitious plan, China Standard 2035, will change the rules for everyone around the world. Global Voices called to boycott the Beijing Winter Olympics. How did the CCP react? Okay, my friends, let us dive into the truth together. The impeachment trial of former President Trump has officially begun. U.S. historian Victor Davis Hanson argued that former President Trump's impeachment is simply Democratic performance art. It is very simple for the House to pass an impeachment, as long as 51% of the people are in favor of it. But in the Senate, when impeachment goes to trial, 2/3 of the senators must agree before President can be convicted and thus impeached. But the Senate already had 45 Republicans opposing the impeachment as they argued it's unconstitutional to impeach someone that has already left office. But nevertheless, Democrats continue to push for the impeachment, and their only aim is to humiliate Trump. After more than 4 hours of debate, the Senate voted again to see if it was unconstitutional to initiate the impeachment trial. 56 people voted in favor and 44 voted against. That means 44 people oppose the impeachment as they think it is unconstitutional. This is one vote less than the previous 45 people. Again, although this vote is not enough to stop the impeachment process, if those senators hold their stance against the unconstitutional impeachment, the result in the upcoming trial will not be enough to convict former President Trump. The Democrats' main arguments for impeachment is that former President Trump incited the violence on Capitol Hill on January 6th. In fact, the former president's speech only called for peaceful protest that is guaranteed by the First Amendment. Moreover, former President Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, recently said that the former president was going to deploy 10,000 National Guards to D.C. That order was done even before January 6th to support local police enforcement and maintain public order. However, former President Trump's proposal had been resisted by local officials in D.C. Even the leftist New York Times reported that Capitol Hill police had long received requests from the Department of Defense and the Department of Justice for law enforcement support. But Capitol Hill police had refused their request until the 6th. Just the News reports that there's growing evidence that the attack on the Capitol was pre-planned. The newly filed federal charges against anti-government activists come just days before the start of former President Trump's impeachment trial. The new and compelling evidence revealed that the alleged perpetrators of the riots pre-planned their attacks days and weeks in advance. The premeditation of the attacks was carried out in the plain sight of the FBI, who vowed to remain vigilant against extremist threats. A dozen affidavits supporting the FBI's allegations against more than 200 defendants show that the rioters had pre-planned on social media. The plans included training, setting up locations, identifying commanders on the scene, asking for cash donations, combat and communication equipment. More than half a dozen suspects are now accused of conspiring to commit violence before the January 6th riots. Court records show that early actions identified in court documents date back to November. The plans and rhetoric began to accelerate after Christmas. According to the report, this growing body of evidence raises the question of whether the FBI and other security agencies are acting proactively enough to thwart violence. The former federal appeals judge, Attorney General and Whitewater Independent Counsel, Kenneth Starr, said the House lawmakers should apologize to former President Trump and apologize to the American people. But instead of apologizing at the beginning of the impeachment trial yesterday, the Democrats played a deceptively edited video of former President Donald Trump's speech on January 6, 2020. They conveniently edited out his call for supporters to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. It is indeed like a performance art. According to the Daily Caller, an analysis of 223 Department of Justice charging documents show that Facebook was the social media network most used to organize the January 6 Capitol riots. The program on extremism at George Washington University has collected the indictments of 223 people who have been charged for participating in the January 6 Capitol riot. Analysis shows that 73 of those charged with crimes used Facebook. more than all other social media sites combined. We all know that due to the Parler's alleged connection to the violence, both Apple and Google removed it from their App Store, and Parler was banned from using Amazon's online infrastructure in the wake of the riot. But it was revealed that only 8 people charged to use Parler. Now that it is proven that Facebook was the most used social media network for organizing the January 6th Capitol riots, let's all watch and see if they dare to also remove Facebook from their App Store. Next, let's talk about a story that could be a security problem for all of us. Sheriff Bob Gualtieri from Peninsula County, Florida, said at a press conference Monday that the water treatment system in Oldsmar, Florida, was hacked remotely on February 5th. The hacker increased the level of sodium hydroxide in the water treatment to more than 100 times the normal level. This level is very dangerous. Sodium hydroxide, also known as lye, is commonly used in small amounts to control the acidity of water and to remove metals from drinking water, but is corrosive in larger amounts. Sodium hydroxide is one of the commonly used chemicals. It has a wide range of applications and is essential for many industrial processes. It is commonly used in the manufacturing of wood pulp, paper, textile, soap, and other cleaning agents. Now, according to the University of Florida Health System, sodium hydroxide poisoning can cause breathing difficulties, severe abdominal pain, loss of vision, rapid drop in blood pressure, and even death. The onset of this effect depends on the amount of the chemical in the water and the frequency of water intake. The water site that was attacked is the main source of drinking water for 15,000 residents in the city of Oldsmar. The sheriff's office said in a statement that the city of Oldsmar sent a notification that their computer system was accessed remotely by an unknown person at 8 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. that day. A plant operator who was remotely monitoring the city's water supply said he didn't think anything unusual because his supervisor regularly accessed the system remotely around 8 a.m. But by 1:30 p.m., the system was accessed again, and this time the operator saw that the hacker had taken control of the mouse and moved it to the software that controls water treatment. And the hacker then adjusted the concentration of sodium hydroxide to more than 100 times the normal level. Gualtieri told reporters that the hacker remotely accessed the system for about 3 to 5 minutes and opened various functions in the water treatment software on the computer screen. After the hacker exited the system, plant workers were able to intervene and change the sodium hydroxide levels back to normal. Gualtieri said because that operator noticed the increase in sodium hydroxide level and immediately reduced it, in no way did the hack have a significant adverse impact on the water being treated. It is important that the public was not put at risk. Gualtieri said even if workers didn't intervene right away, it would have taken more than a day for the contaminant water to enter the city's water system, and the plant has enough safeguard in place to check the water before releasing it. The Pinellas County Sheriff's Office and the FBI are investigating the situation. No one involved has been arrested at this time. Gualtieri said it is unclear why the city of Oldsmar was the target of the hack. Senator Marco Rubio tweeted that the incident should be treated as a national security issue. He said, "I will be asking the FBI to provide all the assistance necessary in investigating an attempt to poison the water supply of Florida City. This should be treated as a national security issue." Now, before we continue, I would like to stop and mention 2 things. First, I want to thank everyone who shows up every day to support this show. I read all the comments and it's just overwhelming the amount of positive encouragement I receive, and it's greatly appreciated by the team and myself. That being said, I would like to ask if everyone could click the like button and share this video to your friends and family. We need to continue to get truthful information out because so many Americans are being lied to. And please double check to make sure you are still subscribed. Thanks again, and let's get back to the show. Next, let's talk about a threat that is not as obvious but could be even more harmful. After Huawei was sanctioned by the US, many countries have excluded Huawei from their 5G construction for national security reasons. But it would be naive to think that the Chinese Communist Party's ambitions have been restrained. On February 7th, the Wall Street Journal published an article pointing out Xi Jinping's ambition to take control of important global technology norms. Industrial standards set by the United States and its allies have long supported the global marketplace, as uniformity is quite important for international trade, ensuring things like bolts in Wi-Fi routers can be used interchangeably around the world. To the surprise of many Western countries, the CCP is making no secret of its use of state funds and political influence to try to define the international norms for cutting-edge technologies, such as telecommunications, power transmissions, and artificial intelligence. The ambition was exposed in an annual report of the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission of the U.S. Congress last December. It noted that dominance of technical standards underpinning information and communication technologies and other emerging fields is integral to Beijing's ambitions. The report highlights that Xi Jinping's administration plans to soon unveil an ambitious plan, China Standard 2035. CCP officials are leading at least 4 global standard organizations, including the International Telecommunications Union, the United Nations agency that governs information and communication technologies, and the International Electrotechnical Commission, the industry organization that governs electrical and electronic technology. On top of that, between 2015 and 2017, the industry's leading organization, the International Organization for Standardization, or ISO, was also led by a Chinese official. According to official documents, the CCP offers subsidies of up to 1 million RMB per year to companies that lead the development of international standards at ISO and other bodies. Notably, last April, as the world was first struck by the CCP virus, CCP representatives at the ISO went so far as to propose high-tech city plans that could play a role in the pandemic, involving standards for collecting municipal data on traffic flow and health emergencies. One delegate at the online conference bluntly stated that this reflects the strong addiction of CCP authorities to collect data. Akira Amari, Japan's former Minister of Economy, Trade and Industry, questioned at the time that this is a trap. He also stressed that if the CCP becomes the authority, it means that the CCP can define the standards, export the system, and then get the data from the system and send it back to the Beijing government. The CEO of the German Institute for Standardization said that if countries around the world don't take action, the end result will be to play by the rules of the CCP once its ambitions are fulfilled. In an interview with Fox, America's Newsroom, yesterday former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo urged the Biden administration to remain vigilant against the Chinese Communist threat. He stressed the need to consider protecting Americans. In another interview with Fox News last Thursday, Pompeo exposed the CCP using technology and apps to obtain personal data on U.S. citizens and then using artificial intelligence technology to comb through that data and use it as a weapon against the United States. Pompeo said these Chinese technologies that infiltrate the United States and infiltrate Europe are things that our kids use, that we use, that are in our cars, that are in our television sets, that are in our handsets and phones. This information also, American information, whether it's personal information about where we live or who we hang out with, or information about our medical conditions and our DNA, that information goes back to the Chinese national security state. It will be used for bad intent. It will be used to harm the United States of America, and those sanctions were put in place by our administration to protect the American people from these twin evils. Pompeo also said the CCP will use that information. They will use artificial intelligence to gather it up, and then they will turn around and tell us that if we don't act in a way that's consistent with what the Chinese Communist Party wants, they will impose real cost on the United States. He urged the Biden administration that it should retain the sanctions and other restrictions that former President Trump imposed on Chinese technology companies, emphasizing that they were intended to protect Americans from the Chinese Communist Party. During his tenure, Pompeo spent a lot of time traveling around the world, talking to leaders from Europe to Asia to South America. He reminded them that while China may bring them some money, the intention behind it is to create leverage and power, and that they add an anti-Western and anti-democratic idea to every important aspect. The Chinese Communist regime has been breaking promises for the past 2 decades. He warned allies that they should adopt the principle of distrust and verify first in dealing with the CCP. On July 23, 2020, Pompeo spoke at the Richard Nixon Presidential Library in California on the topic of Communist China and the free world's future. He He shared his experiences in dealing with the Chinese Communist Party, that the only way to truly change Communist China is to act not on the basis of what Chinese leaders say, but how they behave. At the time, he paraphrased President Reagan's words of trust but verify. But in the case of the CCP, we must distrust and verify. Pompeo also warned that the Chinese Communist Party has infiltrated the United States. Not only has the CCP destroyed millions of American jobs, but they're behind the gates. They're lobbying members of Congress. They're working with our school boards and city councils to try and change our way of life. Biden said last week that the Chinese Communist Party is the United States' extreme competitor. But on Sunday, he added that he wants a conflict-free relationship with his rival. In an interview with Fox News on Monday, February 8th, Republican Senator Tom Cotton pointed out that it was not enough for Biden to criticize former President Trump's China policies without outlining his own plans. He said, the new president must recognize that China is a threat. Now, I dug deep into how the CCP has infiltrated America in every aspect of society and life in my episode yesterday. I have put a link in the description if you're interested in finding out more. On February 7th, 13 members of Parliament from Canada's 5 major federal political parties signed an open letter. They asked the International Olympic Committee to boycott the Beijing Olympic Winter Games, scheduled on February 4th, 2022. Before that, 7 U.S. senators also proposed a resolution on the 3rd, hoping that the IOC would re-elect a country that recognizes and respects human rights to host the 2020 Winter Olympics. In the open letter, the Parliament members warned that participation in the Beijing Olympics would amount to taking part in a sinister, self-aggrandizing spectacle staged for the benefit of a regime that is perpetrating the worst possible crimes against humanity, against its own people. The letter calls on the IOC to relocate the games so that the athletes are not tainted by the event. In the letter, the members compared the upcoming Olympics in China to the 1936 Berlin Olympics held under the Nazi regime, referred to as the Games of Shame. And what's the CCP's reaction to the boycott? Hu Xinxin, the editor-in-chief of Global Times, a CCP-owned newspaper outlet, tweeted on Sunday, February 7th, saying, boycotting the 2022 Winter Games is an unpopular idea. He threatened that China is going to seriously sanction countries that dare to follow the boycott. This is quite a rude and audacious statement without noting the fact that severe human rights abuses are taking place in China every single day. But the regime has grown more and more impatient around the human rights topic, probably because they don't have any intention to address this issue. The reality is today people hold different views on Beijing than 12 years ago when the city was hosting the 2008 Summer Games. Let's see how many countries have the guts to say no to Beijing, and how would CCP sanction them all? Well, that's it for today, my friends. Please like and share, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.